Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Troy.
And I'm Ben-Jamin Toy.
We're broadcasting from the Cohesion Culture headquarters in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where even when it rains, the sun still shines.
You're going to hear real-time stories from leaders confessing their most crucial or recent experiences in business.
Learn what their cost them, steps they took to fix it, and how they planned
to not do that one again.
Welcome, Amy. Hi. Amy Herbig. How are you, Amy?
I am fabulous and so happy and honored to be here. How are the two of you?
Well, we are so good. As a matter of fact, sometimes I like to say if I were any better, I'd be you.
I say I'd be twins.
You'd be twins.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
Two of you then.
Yeah.
I don't know if the world could handle that.
I don't know.
So Amy is the creative juices and the person behind the BA group. But before we get to all that, we like to do something called Connections Before Content. So Amy, in honor of your executive position as a woman of power and leadership within your organization, we'd like to know, tell me the name of a woman who is either someone that you follow maybe in leadership in the current, or somebody from the past, or someone who's been influential for you. What woman has been influential for you?
You know, I'm going to go a little off the cuff because we're allowed to do that here, right? A little out of the box to be cliche. And I'm going to say the name of that woman is truly the working mom who starts her own business. I am incredibly, I have friends who do not have children, their choice, it's nothing against that at all. But when you have that extra layer of a child and you choose to branch out and go against the grain and start your own business, when you are also being a mother, primarily of younger children, and knowing if you want more children on the way, they have really been my rock and my story throughout my 20 plus years of being an entrepreneur, being a business leader, being a woman, having children of my own, being inside a corporate culture. When I had my first child, choosing to branch out when he was only, my goodness, 1 month old, 2 months old, and start the company I've owned for almost 20 years today and have 2 children, to just be able to find that network of women. And there's so many. You can read stories of women tend to take a little bit more of a subtle spotlight because of that quiet calm. And I think being the mother, when you are a working mother, especially in corporate America, or even especially when you go to be maybe the primary breadwinner as an entrepreneur, and you have these mouths to feed literally, and daycares to run around to, and school conferences to go to, and phone calls because little Timmy failed a test, or whatever the run of the gamut can be. I'm just really inspired by more and more women who are branching out of, I guess you could say, a little bit underneath the norm and going out on their own when they have so much already on their plate and shoulders. And they're saying, my pride and my passion tells me this is what I need to do. And then the connection that these women form, because if you know anything about women, we love to tell you where we got a good deal, or where we network and network and network. And just the support of women entrepreneurs and women business owners, especially if they have children, they really, I don't have one specific person that speaks out. It's more of this cultural thing of women supporting women in the business place, especially, like I said, as working moms and those who start their own businesses.
I love it. And I love what you did is that you took a persona. So instead of sometimes focusing on a person and then having people wanting to dissect that particular individual and what they did in their past and whatever, is that you really brought right smack dab to the very beginning of this podcast for our cohesive leaders who are listening here. These are, of course, our individuals who are, looking for growth, development, and advancement. And you've given them this great nugget right off the bat, the persona of looking for the characteristics, the attributes of the individual and what those attributes are, and not focusing just on that person. Love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ben, what about you?
I have become a fanboy of a woman named Cody Sanchez. Cody Sanchez is mid-30s-year-old, multiple business owner, but former Wall Street woman.
Okay.
and huge portfolio, things like that. And now she is the voice for owning blue collar businesses and buying the baby boomer retiring businesses. And she states her mind. She has her own political opinions, and she uses her platform for what she believes in. And it's just been a really amazing path to follow, because she came from a corporate world making tons of money and not feeling that she was getting enough out of it. I mean, she had all the money, but there was something missing. And she's realizing, and now she's been this voice for people to take ownership of their life and not having to do this other consulting business, all these other types of fly by the seat of your pants type businesses, but go into the trades. And also just and advocating for the wealth transition that's supposed to happen of the baby boomers that are about to retire. And it's like $22 trillion of wealth that's going to be transitioning, either business is shutting down or not. Anyways, she loves talking about that and giving ways of how to do that. So yeah. I've loved following her.
And her name again?
Cody Sanchez.
Cody Sanchez.
Yeah.
So I had a toss up between two particular individuals. Of course, I think both of you know I'm very fond of my mother, who is of course deceased today, but all the impact that she did. I wrote a book, Fanny Rules, and talked about her. But for this conversation, I want to point to Mary Kay Ash. So Ash, and I believe that some statistics still refer to her as one of the 50 most influential women in business today. And it was how she ran her company. If you try to Google and go back, you're going to find very little information, because I've really tried to do a lot of research on it. But what I uncovered from some individuals where they've had some additional insight is she really ran her entire company based on the golden rule. It was, how you treat others. And although you might quote that rule, it's like do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. The whole point is that you shouldn't be causing harm to self or harm to others. So that's the way you have to take the golden rule, is in that perspective. Not like, well, how does this person know what I want? And should I be doing what they want versus what I want? So that context and that layer is too much for the simplicity of how you treat people in business. And she built her entire empire around treating people right and empowering women. Telling you that I 100% am so behind a good movie that has a strong female character. Does not need to have, oh, save me, from somebody else, but actually do it. And so I also love Sigourney Weaver for that reason, because she was the potential BA. And by the way, I think that may lead into a little bit of Ben's question to you to talk about your background.
So, Amy, leave humility aside.
Pause your humility button.
And tell us, we want to know a little bit of both who you are, your identity, and who you are, the roles you have. So share with us what you do as far as living life and who you are, and then also some roles you have, some things you've started. So we want to catch it all. And I think we were defined by two of those parts. We have the roles are lots of hats. So we want to hear all the hats, but we also want to be who you are as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, gosh, that's we're humans. We all have multitudes, right? And it's interesting when you were talking about Mary Kay Ash, is while she isn't someone that I ever purposely look to emulate off of, I would like to hope and think if she was around today and we met, she would say, Amy, we're cut from the same loaf of bread, because part of my brand and mantra is what you see is what you get. And so in my multitudes that I have in life, besides being an entrepreneur and business owner, I'll get to that in a moment, I really try in every aspect, whether it's with my children, my husband, my friends, my community, even strangers on the street, I want to, golden rule-ish, leave people in a slightly or grandiose better position than maybe they were before I entered their atmosphere. So I try to practice that every day as possible. And so in my personal life, when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes it's a little hard to find that, but I try to balance it. I look to surround myself with people, to be cliche in a term these days, that fill my bucket. So I have a great group, speaking of women, of strong casual, unpretentious women, everything from a neurologist at the Mayo Clinic to a part-time substitute elementary school teacher and everything in between. I love to be able to meet people from different walks of life, have those conversations. And that, I feel, by doing that makes me a better person, makes me a better mother, makes me a better wife, friend, daughter, sister-in-law, you name it. And so to break it down, I have two boys. One will be 21 here in January shortly, and then the other one will be he's a senior in high school, so I will be technically empty nesting after this spring and into the fall. So looking forward to that, but a little heartbroken as well. My husband and I have been married for 24, 25 years. I graduated from the University of Minnesota, go Gophs, and that's where we met, and we've been together ever since. So I guess you could say we're college sweethearts. Lived in Seattle. I'm from Minnesota, so if you hear the O's every now and then, that's where that comes from.
Minnesota?
Oh yeah, don't you know? Oh yeah. So I tend to be a little more mellow being raised in the cities area, but it comes out every now and then. When my husband and I were newlyweds, we literally opened an atlas and we both pointed to Portland, Seattle, took one trip and were sold, and lived there for 9 years, had both our boys, but the Great Recession really forced us to say, oof, where are we going to go, just due to the cost of living, and chose to go back to our home state of Minnesota, where I'm sitting today. Like I said, my friends and family mean the world to me. The community that I live and run my business from is called Northfield. Betty White, the wonderful, just amazing Betty White, with her character Rose and St. Olaf, as she would talk about. My community behind where I sit is St. Olaf College, right up the hill from where I sit. And then across the river where I am is Carleton College. So Northfield's just this eclectic, funky, liberal arts college town about 30 minutes south of Minneapolis, St. Paul. So love the state, love the community. And it's great to be in a community of about 24,000 people and you walk down the street and hear 7 different languages because people from all over the world come to the college.
Well, how powerful is that?
Yeah, I welcome you. Please, there's a hotel right there, and we have several bed and breakfasts. So I would love anyone to come.
Have you bought the earpods that do the auto translation for languages? You can actually hear them. You can eavesdrop over the conversation.
Oh no, because I'd be the type to start talking to them. I'd be like, okay, I think I heard what you said, and they would probably look at me like some crazy person. But yeah. I'm a magnet for people, or with people I like to, but even the strangers on the airplane, any energy I can read off of will become lifelong friends. So that's
one of those.
Yeah,
you know, oh yes. But I also get, if someone does the shoulder, says, hey, I respect the space. You know, I get in those moods too. So that's me at a 10,000 foot view, I guess, personally. Professionally, tying back to a lot of what we've talked about already, I started off in radio and TV and actually in journalism. I was very fortunate at the school that I went to here in Minnesota. We had a news studio in the school. We worked with the local CBS stations. The producer of the radio show I was put on was good friends with my journalism teacher. And he said, Amy, you've got a knack for production and presenting and information and being curious. That's why I was going into journalism originally. So I was able to be at the age of 16 an on-air personality for a nationally syndicated radio program that went to multiple states around the nation. This was just when, so I'm going to age myself a little bit, Radio Disney was just getting going. We were an AM station, and as the years went on, Disney just got a little too big, as they tend to do, and Radio Oz is what it was called, AAHS, went away. Disney took more of our footprint, if you will, but the amazing experience I got that led me to college. And about halfway through college, I started to go, what is this business thing? What is corporate? What is marketing and strategy? And I just found a real tie to that. I was very fortunate by going to the University of Minnesota that the vast majority of my professors were actual big agency executives, creative directors, traffic officers, copywriters, you name it. So I really studied under actual practicality in the real world.
Okay, so I want to interrupt for just a
Yeah.
moment, because this is a nugget of information. So for those cohesive leaders who are listening to this, the thing that you just said was you took advantage of the expertise and the experience that was around. And I think that it's important to make sure that if you're going to be successful in leadership, if you're going to be successful in your ability to grow, develop, and advance in wherever you are, you have to pay attention to your surroundings, pay attention to the environment, but you also have to pay attention to the experience and expertise, and don't be afraid to ask for help, to learn from them. It is such a compliment. I mean, if you think about it, and it's like there's a difference between I'm sincere and that I want to learn something, or I'm pandering the person because I think I'm going to get something, as a result. I'm, kissing up to them, so to speak. But really learning from people. And I love that about you. And of course, I knew that you do, because I know you a little bit more of your background. So I wanted to just make sure that folks were listening in and writing that particular nugget down. Pay attention to your environment, pay attention to the people in your environment, and don't be afraid to ask them questions, because they will more than likely be willing to teach. And if that person's not willing to teach, find somebody else, because there will be somebody else there.
To me, it ties into the quote from Thomas Edison, is that success is missed by most people. Because wrong quote. It comes in. Yeah. Well, that quote is because it comes in overalls and looks like work. That's a whole different topic.
Okay.
But the other one is that it's missed by most, or that success is when opportunity meets preparedness. And you were prepared for the opportunity, so you took advantage of the opportunities. And so many folks, they see all these things, but they're not ready for it. They don't want to try. They're not ready to learn. So when them things are presented in front of them, they don't do anything with them. So they wonder why they weren't successful.
Yes.
So. Do you think a lot of that goes back to self-confidence and just fear? Like where you may have had or not had your village leading you to that moment prepares you or doesn't to accept it?
I would venture to say a lot of that is in that case. In my experience working with in team building, from a lot of corporate stuff down to youth group stuff, we are seeing a huge difference in youth-oriented activities where folks are scared of being wrong. We do activities that even in corporate stuff, there's sometimes timidness to do. The one activity we do requires them to guess as a path. And it's 1 out of 6 options is correct as far as our intention. I once did this with middle schoolers, and it was 3 minutes before someone was willing to take the first step and be wrong with somebody else. So I think that is a parenting thing about encouraging folks to be wrong, but then an environment they've been around where they've been chastised for being wrong. And so to take advantage of opportunities means you had to have been encouraged to be out there and be struck down and not let it affect your next at bat, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're experiencing that. And so it's a creative thinking exercise that we do when we work with, because all of our programs that we offer are experiential learning. So it's a matter of you experiencing today so you can implement something tomorrow. And it's a little bit of hands-on. And some of what Ben was speaking about is you can tell in an adult whether or not they have self-confidence or whether they lack it, because when they're the first in the line to make this choice of these 6 options and pick one, they want to know all the rules around the picking them. They want to get all this information. Instead, we've given them all the rules, which is make a selection. If you're wrong, we simply tell you you're wrong, and somebody else.
And there's no consequence, and yet there's still
right, and there's still a delay. So unlike sometimes in business, you don't get all the privilege to do that. But if you do have those moments where you can fully just experiment and just try, you definitely want to be able to do that. I know we cut in a little bit to to the part, because I think I want to get you to the BA group, and I want you to talk about it and what it means.
Absolutely. Well, no, thank you. I love this dialogue, this off the cuff, because that's why we're here, right? To help not only encourage those who are listening or watching, but each other as well. Because no one knows everything, right? If we did, life would be incredibly boring. So these types of dialogue, and thank you first and foremost too, to having this platform for us to be able to communicate, and other guests as well. So this is just fabulous conversation. And to circle back in, what really prompted me to start the BA group was when after college, I got into corporate America, and there's nothing wrong. There's some good corporate America, but talking about what you just said, Ben, too, and being prepared and really open to seeing what is presented in front of you. I guess one of my things is I feel I've never really had tunnel vision. I think that might be a gift, if you will, that I have always been able to see. And obviously with age comes hopefully more wisdom. And I just saw how miserable so many people were. I saw this expectation of just because you had a title, you could treat people, not like the golden rule, treat people the way you wanted to. And I told my father one day at the ripe young age of 24, I will stay 366 days just so I get that year on my resume and then I'm out. And unbeknownst to me, I had that driven grit type of spirit and just started calling around and getting jobs. And I got into the retail financial sector from there. And then when my husband and I were married and moved to Seattle, I actually was supposed to be a West Coast regional marketing director for a housing development company up and down the West Coast. And we moved 9/1/11. And so we all know what happened 10 days later. We're in a strange city. We knew no one, and the world changed as we knew it. I did not find employment for almost a year to the date, because I also told myself, you know what, just with the perspective and being open to what was happening, you only have one life to live. I'm only 25 at this point. I better find a place that meets my ethos and my line of thinking and how I want to respect those I work for and with. And I found it at a credit union. I've always called them more of the good guys of the banking world. No offense to other financial institutions. There's great banks and community banks too, but that was just coming from what I had come from, journalism and TV and radio, into then corporate America for a few years, and then getting into a credit union. It sucked me in. The literally management leadership sitting around the table making decisions for the financial well-being and benefit of others just hit all the, checked all the boxes for me. And so I was there for several years, but even at good places, you might find yourself with glass ceilings. And this is tying back to what we were a little bit talking about in the beginning, is I was feeling that glass ceiling. There was more I wanted to do, and I knew I could, because I was coming into an industry that, especially at that time, pretty historically, somebody in the marketing business strategy realm, which I was leading, was a teller with maybe no formal experience or education, just had a good attitude. They liked colors, or they were fun and outgoing. And no offense to those people, you got to have your characters, but they didn't know how to do good business. And I also saw in the credit union industry, there was a lot of struggle of how to actually run a business. And so I was just combining all this plethora of experience that fell under an umbrella of really working a company, working a business, but also in the financial and even more so credit union sector. So one night I turned to my husband and I said, you know what? I'm meant for other things. I want to start my own consultancy. And he has always supported me from day one. He's like, you can do it. And I said, and I have a feeling the credit union's not going to want to see me go. So I plan on them being my first client. And sure enough, they were. So I bet on myself. I built that confidence, and I bet on myself. And that was in August of 2025, that will be 20 years that I did that. And so what the BA group, I always call it Entrepreneurial 101. Find a need and fulfill it. But you have to feel like you can fulfill it. Don't force it, right? So I knew in the credit union specifically, and community bank, because some of those I work with every now and then too, they needed true strategic business planning. They needed true strategic marketing. And mind you, this was before Facebook. Google was just coming on the scene. All of that. Websites were still very basic. Digital media was advertised on a radio station's webpage. So with my education and experience leading me forward, I knew that credit unions needed the capability to have this expertise of marketing, business strategy, even preliminary data analytics, but they couldn't afford it. And so by basing it as an outsourced fractional type of team position, I was the first to market to really do that exclusively for credit unions. So I spoke at conventions, judged awards, etc. And to this day, BA has grown and built to where we have brought in-house, or we contract with the experts in their field of knowledge and expertise for financial institutions that can't afford to have those bodies in-house, but need it in order to not just survive, but thrive and compete. And then my position, specifically, is always at the helm with leadership, executive training, executive planning, business audits, development, brand evolutions with name changes. I mean, it can run the gamut. I won't take up too much time, but we truly have become the immersed, indispensable partners for the financial sector, for credit and some community banks. So,
and what I really love about the way your story and the way you told that story, and again, for folks listening, because we hope they've got a pen and paper, or they're making a mental note one way or another, or they're making a digital reference to what they're hearing, is that you have built self-confidence. Like, you had to, first of all, recognize your own self-confidence, put that self-confidence in what you were doing, but also understand that it wasn't a path of entitlement. It was a path of work. That there was effort that I had to put into it. There was a path I had to take. It wasn't something that was going to happen overnight. You've been successful for 20 years in business, and that success, you may have been able to celebrate small amounts of success along the way, but you kind of like where you are. So the caution to these cohesive leaders who are listening is that it does take time, it does take work, it does take effort. But if you're putting that work and that effort into the right place, you're going to be able to enjoy the fruits of those efforts. So those fruits are going to be there. And it's important to not try to get there too fast and leave out some very important things, such as getting information from mentors and individuals with more expertise along the way. So now that we've got a good idea,
I've got a question first for our listeners, and because words matter, when I hear BA, I think bad attitude Baracus from the A-Team. So what does BA stand for?
It doesn't stand for that or the other A word that, you're kind of skirting around there. And I always say it doesn't, but we are, so we'll take it. But when I was, long story short, when I was starting off as a business strategist, and it's always hard to brand yourself, I said, okay, come up with those who are closest to me with some adjectives, because it was just going to be little me, myself, and I. And one of the words on there was ambitious. And my husband said, blonde ambition, because you don't take yourself too seriously. You think you're witty. I know I am. And you are driven like no one I've ever known. And I said, and my primary target audience is executive female women, and they will love that. So with no, here's my 5-year plan, I knew that the vast majority of the people who would be my target audience to gain partnership from would be women. They were. To this day, they typically are too, just because of roles and responsibilities. I mean, there's more male CEOs, and that doesn't matter, but I'm just saying. And then over the years, because it stopped becoming just about me, myself, and I, I'm at the helm, but the team, it's the BA group. So the brand has evolved also within itself. So Blonde Ambition or BA blank blank group, we'll take them both.
Absolutely. And I know you, and so the BA blank blank is definitely characteristic for you. So I'm just going to say that's great. Okay. So now we need to get to the essence of our podcast, and that is the uh-oh experience. So share with us the uh-oh that you brought today.
I love this challenge too, because I was like, which one do I pick, right? And a little bit in similar concept as the first question about a female that I admire. It's characteristics and personas, you will, if I will, about the biggest uh-ohs that I've had in business, being an entrepreneur, but just also as an executive, is saying yes when you know, and I knew it should have been a no. And By that, especially, and I equate this to not just being a business owner and growing that company and saying, okay, I'll take anything I can get because I need money and it feels good and people want me, and you get blindsided sometimes by that energy, by that excitement for you. I mean, it's great, it's a nice compliment, but now all deductive reasoning and everything filters are off because you're just seeing one thing, either it's money or the attention. You can parallel that. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to experience that. So many, I'm sure, listening. I mean, you don't wish bad things on people, but you probably have had a bad boss or a bad leader or a bad cohort or even a subordinate, toxic in nature, what have you, but you let it happen. And that's one thing I have learned over the years, is not to allow it to happen. And for so long, I allowed it to happen because I felt, well, I should feel honored that they need me and they want me, that they've chosen me. Even, this confidence in this BA blank blank you see today has been a work in progress for sure. Please don't get me wrong on that. And that trickle effect from allowing that type of energy and toxicity and gaslighting, whatever it might be on any spectrum, to just be accepted. Those translate and trickle into your work life, into how you run, from my point of view, my own company at times, my marriage, my home life, my freedom, my health. And so, I mean, there was a situation, just briefly to share, just to give a little more context, of where we literally had a client who would call us stupid, who would call us, this is just idiotic. I can't believe you would do that. And my team, we'd be on Zoom. We were doing that way before the pandemic. And looking up to question, well, but she said this and she said that. And truly, this person just wasn't happy in their life. But I would then say, after a meeting, I'd give excuses. And even saying that out loud is like, oh, Amy, because they were paying part of their salary, right? Helping to keep the lights on and helping to build our resume and portfolio. And so I'll stop talking at this moment, let you ask questions and we can engage here. But those uh-ohs have big repercussions. And those are the things I wish I would have had more strength at those times and more clarity.
I have a clarifying question on that because I have my own experience on this as a business owner for a long time. Do you feel that being able to say no at the beginning is needed, or is yes that paints the mud on the wall picture needed to get started before you know where your no's need to be?
That's a really complex question, but a good one, because would you say, and to have sort of a back and forth on this, sometimes that no is just hanging out up here. You've got this voice inside you, and maybe from past experiences, but you're hopeful. And so you have that hope that helps to maybe dilute it a little bit. And then should that no come to fruition, you're going, oh man, like I knew it, but I was clouded.
And I think that for me, it's based on your tenure. It's a little bit of the tenure determines on that. So like in the beginning of you doing your business, just like when you have the leadership, or you have an individual who's in a company and they want to get a promotion and they do everything the boss ever asks them to do. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. In the very beginning, you're like, yeah, take it on. I want to take it on, because you don't have the experience to understand possibly where you should have said no. You don't have enough background. You don't, so you take it all in the beginning and you learn over time how to say no. And I think that's what it is. It's the evolution of us as we mature in our leadership. We then begin to understand when we can say no. And we understand that it's not necessary to have to please everyone. And just like you, Amy, I get to decide which clients I work with. And I decide whether I want to consult with them, whether I want to do culture work with them, whether I want to do coaching work with them. And I can decide that today. But I would say that if I had started this 30 or 40 years ago, I may not have been so particular. I may have simply just gone for the fact that I'm putting food on the table. So I think some of that would have driven my decisions.
I would say that for me, it was a forced reflection on the willingness to say no. Like sometimes you're saying yes because you want the business, and 2020, the sheer shake up in my business really allowed us to look at it as, well, what I was saying yes and staying busy, but I wasn't being productive. And so the phrase that I coined at the time was, yes got me here, but no is going to get me where I got to go.
I love that.
And then said the mud that's stuck on the wall will be the bricks for the next foundation.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to have all of those yeses that didn't pan out to be the reasons for the no's. And now it's also understanding that no is a complete sentence.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like that.
I know it's the uh-oh podcast, but I just made it the ooh. Like ooh moment. Yeah, like, oh wow, that's deep.
Can we unpack this for a moment?
Yeah, go ahead, right ahead, absolutely.
Because being the professional and dime store psychologist, as marketers and strategists and leaders tend to be if we don't have the formal degree, and my brother and sister-in-law would agree because they have their doctorates and everything and PhDs in psychology. Let's think about Gen Z just for a moment here. And what you were talking about earlier too, Ben, about like nowadays and people being afraid and people being more reserved to fail or to just not look a certain way in front of other people. Imagine this conversation we're having here. Imagine for the Gen Zs, that's the youngest generation right now, coming into the workforce. And I have two of them who work for me. If there is this expectation of what doesn't exist, perfection, and there's this expectation, the trickle of that then is reserved in voice, in action, in confidence, etc. How that's going to translate then to having those situations above them that maybe they haven't exercised grit, maybe they haven't exercised really listening to their voice. And I think too, or it seems too, that there seems to be a black and white scenario going on. Either you're being contentious and you're being rude, and versus you're just being complacent. Like finding that balance and trust and building that confidence and trust within yourself. Whether you're a business owner or working, starting your first job out of school or what have you, that it's okay to say no. Like how as us as leaders can we influence this next generation coming up to find that balance, given the scenarios that we're running into today?
I could probably do another couple hours on this topic alone, and seeing both sides of it and understanding the concepts of it. But man, it's a big one though.
So the other thing that I have been able to work through with some of the executives I've been coaching with is to have them understand that there is a yes and a not now and a no, so that they can be clear to distinguish that it doesn't come across the no like I don't want to do it. I'm never going to do it. I just can't do it now. I have resources. And so one of the things in working with, again, young professionals, those people who are emerging, is to be able to say clearly, have a conversation with your supervisor to let them know, I want to do this job for you. So I'm kind of saying I want to do the job so that you're not putting forth a barrier, but you're to say, but I have these 4 things on my list of which you've asked me to do. So how can we negotiate? Do I take one of these off? Do I make some adjustment for timeline so that I can also fit what you're asking me to do now into this? So it doesn't become an unrealistic. It doesn't just become, no, I'm not going to do it because I've already got 4 other things. I mean, that harshness is not what we are expecting. So when you're saying, say no, it's not a harsh no. Right. It's to be able to say it's a reality no that sometimes has to become more of a not now. I can't do it at this moment. Or as you become more seasoned, as I have in my executive career, I would have said back to my supervisor, I can do that for you, but I can't do it by then. I can do it by this time. Do you really need it by then? Do we need to reorganize resources? If not, I'll reprioritize, and I don't have to ask them to reprioritize for me. I'll be able to do it, but I need to understand the particulars around it. So I think that what we need to make sure that our listeners are getting is that you have to get information before you make a yes or a no. You should be You should be asking questions, understanding what it is, then be able to render your decision. And
Right.
for many individuals, you can render so many more not nows that do not negatively impact you, because the last thing you want to be is the no person. I don't want to be the no boy.
Right.
I am the yes, I can figure it out, but not a yes, I'm figuring it out on my own. I'm going to be a yes, I figure it out, but you're going to help me. We're going to work through this together. That's where I am with this.
Yeah.
So to get us back on track, what are the steps that you took to get you, or that you're currently still taking, to be a non-yes person, right? What are you doing to allow yourself to say no?
Well, first and foremost, realizing that a no or even a not now doesn't mean it's conflict. Doesn't mean that it's what you were just saying is negative, that it's for that greater good and that purpose, and to understand what you want to, what I want to, and what I want for my team and others to learn is, what do you want in your space? What's it worth? Right? What's it worth? Is it worth that dollar amount, or would you just have to maybe work a little harder and get more creative to find it another way? So one of the things that we started to do was, and you usually don't hear companies say this, but we fired 2 clients. Even though at the moment we didn't have other clients to back into them. Had a talk with the conversation with the team, and it was one of the first times I ever realized that as a leader, as the CEO, founder, CEO of this company, and everyone looking to me mostly, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be, I've always been transparent, but transparent more on a business side, that I could be more transparent on the Amy side. I could tell them, look, it's burned my wick out, and I know it's burned your wick out. I don't want you to quit, just relating to them and taking ownership. It's not failure when you've admitted that something didn't work out. It's failure when you don't, but do and try and learn, right? So those were the first steps, is to take a deep breath. It was scary. That's the thing. It was so scary, but we knew it was absolutely what had to be done. That really opened up the realization that, we know what we're doing. I know what I'm doing. I still am always learning and growing and trying to seek for those individuals to continue to mentor and grow me as well as I do for others. And that it was amazing when I did that, though, that what we were talking about earlier too, is how do you know, is it a yes or a no? It was almost like all the gloves were off, and I could see sooner characteristics, interactions, and just trusting that voice in my head and that gut. And so to this day, in fact, just this week, someone called saying there was a referral. And I don't want to make it sound like I do this all the time. I don't. This isn't a regular situation. But I did some deductive reasoning based on my own little litmus test that I've created for myself and the filter points for my company. And I said, oh, you know what? This, and this. Now, am I making some educated assumptions? Yes. To your points earlier, Troy, with age, hopefully comes wisdom and experience. I'm like, 9 times out of 10, this painted picture tells me this would be the scenario. Thank you for the offer of the referral. I think we're good. So, and like you were saying too, it's not contentious. It's not a no, even though it was a no, it was a no, thank you. Because I now need to protect not only myself, but the integrity of a company and that of those who work for me.
That's really awesome. Amy, we are so thankful that you had an opportunity to come on to share your wisdom, to really help us with your experience. And there were so many little nuggets of information that we've tried to recap along the way. If you could provide at least one thing, so put on your teaching hat now and say, and keep it to one thing. What is one thing that you would want the listeners to know about leadership? That you want, what wisdom do you want to impart to them?
That leadership is not granted, it's earned. So even though you have the title, doesn't mean you've earned it.
Great. Okay, awesome. Good.
Awesome. Well, we're going to also end with one end piece of connection. If you have to wear a t-shirt with one word on it for an entire year, or let's say 365 t-shirts, one word, and this is what people see before they approach you, or it's what, maybe it's a higher up one, so when you're on Zoom calls, they see it. What is that word?
One word.
One word. Or you can realize that I'm in the team building space in the gray area.
You do realize based
No,
on
no, no. I got it.
you've thrown out a challenge. One word.
One word.
Okay.
Just hi. Just hi. Hi.
H-I-G-H?
No, H-I.
H-I. Got
Hi.
it. Okay, Ben, what's your word?
I mean, I always do hashtag live on purpose because I operate in the gray area and, you know, there's no spaces in it.
So it's, or hyphenate, right?
Yep.
Oh,
So
you did. I didn't know you could hyphenate.
that's what I do. That's what I do.
And my word is teachable.
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 I love it. Fits us.
Once
can feel
again, awesome, awesome. So tell me, how do people get in touch with you?
So I would love to connect. You can find just Amy Herbig on LinkedIn or the BA Group. The company does have the word the in it, thebagroup.com, and Amy Herbig on LinkedIn. Those are the two main ways. And if you're in Minnesota, look me up. I'd love to have coffee with you.
Okay, that'll be great. Well, I know I'll see you in July in Texas as we work on a little joint project. So, you know, folks can find us through the Cohesion Culture program. They can Google Cohesion Culture and they'll figure it out. Also, Becoming a Cohesive Leader, which is a program designed to help individuals who are either dissatisfied with their organizations because they're not getting the training and development they need, or they're being passed over for promotion. If they want to reach out to Ben and I, they can do so at info@cohesionculture.net. And as always, we close out our show with one simple message. Our mantra is, you don't have to know everything. You just need to be teachable.
Thank you so much for having me today. So appreciate it. Be well, everyone.
Thanks.